I went 6 months just going commando. Because they were like, we had the DNA frag stuff. We'll go into it, but I had the DNA frag diagnosis, and I did a breakdown with Ian.
Yeah.
And one of the things was, you know, saunas, baths, all that stuff. But one of them was, I know it's a little bit out there, but, you know, no boxes, like just commando, all loose boxes.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck this, I'm going all in. So I went no boxes for months, and I just don't know, it was scratchy down there. Yeah. It's quite scratchy. I'm getting caught all the time.
Yeah. It's, you know, when you're used to something, like, and then something, it would be weird, wouldn't it?
It is, it's really strange.
Thankfully, that was never a consideration for me. One of the benefits of having no swimmers.
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that stuff.
You don't have to go for any
all
of
the saunas you want.
Yeah. I actually did do it all. I went
you
all
did?
in just in case,
Yeah.
because they were still doing like procedures and investigating. So you don't want to leave any stone unturned, do you?
Of course.
Have any doubt or regret just in case they find something and it's like dud.
Yeah.
Like, you think, what could I have done to prevent that? Are we recording, by the way?
Yeah, we're recording, but I edit all up anyway,
Right,
so it's
cool.
fine. Yeah. No, we're rolling. Again, George will be there going, we're rolling now, but I haven't got George today.
That's all good.
So I'm just running solo. Right, so we'll dive in.
Yeah.
Shaun, good to meet you finally, mate.
Absolute legend. My pleasure to be here. And thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, it's my pleasure. We've been speaking for ages. It's probably coming up to a year this summer, I think.
Yeah.
Because when we started looking into the social media voices, you and Kieran were the ones that I were drawn towards. Obviously, I know you guys were working together, but also your separate pages and journeys were quite unique.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about you guys is that you were very, and I took a lot of that. What I'm doing now is that you're very open about everything, and you weren't holding back. All your posts were very heart and sleeve, and I love that. I love that that openness to it. And yeah, we've obviously been back and forth for ages now. We've been trying to get this in for so long, and obviously you don't live anywhere around here, and it's just, you know, life.
Yeah.
Now you've got a family, and now I've got a little one, and so life takes hold sometimes. But yeah, thanks for coming down. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
I want to start by going into, before we go into your story, into this fertility journey that you've been down, and now going into kind of being a bit of a voice for men. What I want to know is, and because I don't know this, who was Shaun before? Is it like 2017, 18?
Yeah. 2017 is when we started trying.
So 2017, what was life like for you then? And like, who was Shaun then? Like, what was your outlook on life? Like, how I want to find out really is how different things are from 2017, 18 to like where we are now in 2026.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it was a very like almost innocent age up till then. Like, kind of life just happens, you know, when you're kids, and then teens are the teens, and then even in your 20s, like I moved up here, moved to London, and was just having fun. Like, literally, it was living pretty much week to week, I would say. And then met my missus, like hung around in London longer than I had planned. She's a Londoner, and
Where's she from?
she's from North London, up in Enfield. Okay. And so yeah, I kind of moved up like Dick Whittington from the countryside. I genuinely just had like a bin liner with bedding in and a suitcase, and that was it. And I ended up being here for 15 years.
Cliche, probably cliche story, but yeah.
No cat, but yeah, so we got a couple in the end. But and yeah, I just didn't have a plan really. But I knew, like, me and my missus got together and we had those early conversations around kids. We both were aligned on that. It's kind of like one of those early dating questions, isn't it? Like, see if you're aligned with someone on everything. And that was one of the questions. But I think, like many young people, I took life for granted. I took it for granted that I would have kids when I wanted them. And also, I was, like, I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm different now, but I was like a very base man. Like, it was just about putting pints away, sport, music. And I didn't have many levels or layers. And you don't know that until you're forced to strip that back, actually. Because the layers that were there were all just nonsense, really. It was like ego and what I thought it was to be a man. And you're building that up. And then suddenly when bang, like, you know, there's no spoiler here, you know, for being on this pod, but when you get an adverse diagnosis about your fertility, suddenly it just attacks all of that. But actually the main thing it's attacking is ego, because that's like the outward thing that we're presenting to the world that I was building up and trying to show other people that this guy was your reliable, funny mate and would be the first in the pub and the last out and all this. And suddenly, it's quite a fragile existence, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I wanted to, wanted to start with that, because it makes more sense as to how much you've changed from knowing where you started. I feel like I relate to you a lot of ways there. When we went into lockdown, we started trying 2020. I don't actually even recognize the person that I used to be. Eleanor sends me pictures every now and again, which will come up on the timeline, and it'll be like, this was you 9 years ago, or 6 years ago, or 5 years ago. And I look at the pictures and I don't even recognize like even my face. And I look at the pictures of me, I see the identity is completely different.
Yeah.
Like my value system I've always clearly had those values somewhere inside, but I wasn't expressing them properly. Didn't really know who I was. So that's why I wanted to start with that, because it feels like from where you are now and the content you put out and the way you speak on your podcast and stuff. And I think I saw a video maybe today that you put up about, it might have been like in the bar and pints and stuff kicking about, like you've gone on a very similar journey, whereas like your value system just changes because you kind of forced into it. Really.
And that's a really good point. And I think I was the same in that those values were clearly there. And I think that is like, but that's what I had to get back to, because I built then through peers, teachers, social media, or like my generation, it was like mainstream media, TV, but then latterly social media. And I built up this exterior around it. But then actually, when you're forced to go back to the core of who you are and discover your identity, your character, it's a hard journey to go on. But coming out the other side, like us, and it doesn't matter about whether it's fertility or whatever. You go through any struggles, and you have to really find who you are, and maybe redefine as well from the inside out. It's a hard graft, but it's worth doing, because I'm a better version of myself as a result, a better husband, and now I'm sorry for the spoiler, but I'm really pleased to say I'm a better father than what I would have been had we just conceived in the easy way.
Yeah. I always look at that. It's a paradox. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's like an oxymoron. That's not the right term either. But like looking at people who get pregnant naturally, which by the way I think is incredible. If people can get pregnant and have to go through the struggle, it's fucking mint, right?
Blows my mind though, right? And you knowing how complex it is.
Completely.
People just do it by accident.
I know. Even like what's the chances, like 20 or 25% of actually having a successful conception naturally, just trying in the month? It's like even those numbers are low.
Yeah.
Then if you add all the mitigating factors that can be like a player like male infertility, whether it's DNA frag or PCOS, all these things just chip away at that number.
Yeah.
And what I was saying was the gratitude that I have now for our little boy is, obviously I don't know any different. I only know my journey and it's anecdotal, but I'm so grateful. And I'm sure a lot of people who conceive naturally are grateful. What I'm saying is the struggle really makes you, I think it intensifies the gratitude. I don't know whether you feel.
Oh, massively.
It's
like I can't, and I wouldn't ever say, and I know we're in safe company with your listeners as well, but it's not really a conversation you can have with mates who conceive easily and naturally. But it's like, I know for 100% that anyone listening will appreciate it a lot more when you get there, because of the hardships it takes to get there.
Completely,
the journey you go on, the pain, the losses, the grief, the everything. And then when you get there, it just changes everything on the other side.
Yeah. What did fatherhood mean to you pre-2018? So what did that look like for you?
So I've come from like really big families, like... my nan actually had like great banter once. I was going through my family tree and I said, God, like, why are there so many children? And she said, there was no telly.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah. And, but yeah, literally like on my mum's side, for example, both my gran and granddad had like 7 or 8 siblings. And it was a bit of a numbers game in those generations as well. Like wartime or post-war. But that's all I've ever known. Massive family. I've got genuinely more cousins than I know. You just can't hold that many people in your life sometimes. And but that's what I was used to, like fun, big households, Christmases with loads of people. So I wanted like 4 or 5 kids. And I remember saying that to my wife and seeing it, she was like, whoa, like steady on. And then when you realise that you can't have any, or like are going to struggle to have any at all, it just flips everything like that, because I'd just taken that as a given. I got 2 younger brothers. They had kids earlier than me, like first time, second time of asking. So you just think, right, yeah, biological when I want to, and I always had this notion, and I know, like, again, maybe quite base, but I wanted like a 5-a-side football team. And,
Right, okay.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
it was that was what fatherhood was for me. It was just like this something that was gonna happen, be like turning on a tap, and then suddenly, oh wow, is it gonna happen at all?
Well, let's actually go into that, because I'll give a bit, for the listeners who don't know, some context as to kind of how that came about. Like, what was that situation like, where you for the journey of going from that mindset, having the 5-a-side team, to then realizing that you can't have children, or infertile, however you want to put it.
Yeah. Well, so it's 2017. Do you know what? I just want to say I love the way this has gone, this convo, because often people are just like, right, tell us from the start type thing. But I love that we've had. Yeah, it's just really cool.
Trying to like weave it in a way that's natural, we're having a nice conversation. And I have got some like points I want to touch upon, but I just think when people are listening, the conversation flows better if we try and just do it a little bit differently.
Yeah,
and just kind of swing it back.
Really
around.
enjoyed it actually.
Good.
It's because often it starts when we started trying, but actually we've started further back. So yeah, it was like at the beginning of the year we were doing what society was telling us to do. We got married, got a house, and then got the next house, which was slightly out of town, with a drive, bigger garden. We were like, right, we put all the ducks are in a row. Let's just have kids, right?
Yeah, of course.
Next point. So my wife was on the contraceptive pill, and anecdotally, we'd heard through friends that it might take a few months to work its way out the system. So we were like, okay, we got 3 months for free, almost like no worry. Let's just enjoy that. And then those 3 months come and go. The next month comes and goes, and like, you know, the period comes, and then suddenly those months start getting a bit heavier. You suddenly then start going into the 6-month, 7-month point, and then the sex becomes really quite pressured, especially, and not like for both, but then for the bloke, it's very obvious when that pressure's showing.
Oh yeah.
When you're in there.
Oh, it's game over.
Yeah. You can't get out really, because once the thoughts start, and as soon as it happens once, it goes into the next time, and then you know, there's a couple of ways. If it's not happening at all, or if you're not getting the end result that you're looking for, and it's a hard place to be. And that, you know, that then when that started happening, like that, the only reason we got through that was by a frank conversation with my wife, and I was saying, like, you know, the pressure is so intense, and I had to say to her, the phone calls of like, where are you? Can you get home now? Because she was tracking ovulation.
Yeah, I know this conversation. It's a vicious cycle, and almost I described it. I think it was on the last episode with Tatiana, which was it compounds. Mm-hmm. So that once you have described it bang on, and this is when I started explaining it to Eleanor. I said, once that thought's in my head, it's done. Yeah. Like there's no way I can get it out.
Yeah.
And then when I say so, she goes, "Oh, it's fine today. Let's just try maybe tonight or tomorrow." I'm already thinking about later or tomorrow. Yeah. Then now. I can't get that out of my head now. But sorry, carry on.
No, that's right. And actually, there are a lot of then similarities with going to the sample room. I had the same issues because the pressure and, you know, we haven't even got on, but it's...
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It's so hard. And then we got to September, so it's like 9 months of trying, and we went to Croatia on holiday, and we were convinced that it was going to happen there, because what was everyone telling us? Oh, you two just need to relax. Don't worry about it. You just need to go on holiday.
Hannah Pern loved that. Just relax.
Yeah. And that, because we were just, that was constant advice from people. And so we went on holiday. We just relaxed. And look, we truly believed it was going to work. We even went to like a nudist beach one day. We hired a boat and we ended up there, but we just did it. You know, we talked earlier about going commando and stuff. It's a really weird feeling having a skinny dip.
Yeah.
You look a bit like kind of discombobulating. You think I feel a bit like vulnerable here.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, we were convinced it was going to work, and we even said, oh, like the Beckham's had Brooklyn. If we conceive here, we should come up with a Croatian themed name. And came back from holiday, and guess what? Then also followed us back was my wife's period. So that was like quite a crushing moment, and gave it a couple more times after that. And then we went to the doctor at the end of the year. He referred us, both of us, thankfully, because I know so many blokes who just don't get referred for a long time down the line. Both got referred for tests, and in January 18, I was still living and working just in London, like over on the West End, and got a phone call from my GPs, and I took it outside, and it was someone on the phone. Now, I don't know to this day who it was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a doctor, probably not a nurse, probably a member of admin staff or the receptionist or something, not with a particular high level of medical training. She said, this was January 18, you need to come in 3 months' time to do another sample. And I was like, okay, why is that? You know, now we know why, the sperm cycle, and I don't know this at the time, you know. And she said, oh, it just says here that they've asked you to do a repeat test because it says here that you've got, and then she stumbled over the word azoospermia. She said, azoospermia, and she ended with that intonation as if it was a question to me.
Okay.
I was like, well, what's that? And she said, I don't know. I was like, okay, cool. Let's book it in for March. Got off the phone, got on Google. No sperm.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I remember it so vividly. I was like a concrete block outside my workplace. Phoned my wife to say to her, like, you know, they said I've got no sperm. And it was just weird. Like, really, essentially, I was in shock. And she was like, the same, but she was like, I'll see you at home.
Actually, before you go on, could we just explain just briefly, like 10, 15 seconds, what azoospermia is?
Yeah.
So people know.
Yeah, I mean, it literally means no sperm in the ejaculate.
Okay.
And so most men have tens of millions.
Yeah.
I don't know the counts, like, you know, as per the World Health Organization guidelines, but you're talking like tens of millions in any given ejaculate.
Yeah.
And when you've been, well, you know, Google's telling me I've got none, because there's all sorts of different, there's like, I think, oligospermia or something like that. I think a few, or cryptospermia or something like that. It means like there's some, but they're not, they're dead.
Okay.
I don't know all, but you know, but then you got all these. That's the thing with infertility or going through fertility journeys. You get all these new scientific words, clinical words, and you're having to learn this whole new glossary of terms.
Yeah.
And that first one, which I'm happy, you know, it defines my life now. That word, it defined my life the moment I got told it wrongly, like mispronounced.
Yeah.
But it has come to define my life ever since. And that I choose now to make that a positive, because it's that word, that diagnosis is never changing. It's what I do with it. I could go either way, you know, and but there were times where I didn't know that, and it might have got, and it did go the other way. But
the shock, sorry, I cut you off, was you said.
Yes.
So this is what I wanted to touch upon, like that moment, because I related, obviously didn't have azoospermia. My DNA fragmentation was really low, and I had a call with Ian Stones. And when I came off that call, before I went on the call, I didn't think it was me. And when I came off that call and Ian hung up, I went through all sorts. It was grief. It was like my identity shifted. And what I want to ask is kind of, you mentioned the word shock when you found out. What, like, could you go into that a little bit more? Like, what was that thought process like? What did it change you at that point? Like, what was that journey like for you from that point, from that call?
At that moment, that word. So my wife said, "Oh, let's go home." I see she was at work as well, and I was like, "No, it's fine. I'll go back to work and I'll see you at home later." And I think that pretty much defined the next like year and a half, really.
Wow.
That kind of like just being like, just trying to out to everyone else, just portraying normality. And I went back into the office as if nothing had happened. And yeah, it's like being pushed into a river at that moment. It's like took the phone call on a riverbank, and then that phone call pushed me into this river, which was like fast flowing, dragging me down. And at times it'd be dragging me under. I couldn't breathe. There were other times where it like slowed down to almost like a stop, and it's like being in the doldrums. And I wanted to move on. I wanted progression, but then nothing's happening, i.e. navigating the NHS funding system or waiting for referrals, appointments, scans, results. That waiting is like you want to move and there's nothing happening. Or other times where things are speeding up and you feel like you're drowning, and that's what it's like. That, and in that is that grief. And I'm glad you said that word, because I feel like infertility is a disenfranchised grief. Because if you say to someone about, I'm grieving this or whatever, everyone knows what grief is for. If a loved one or a friend or a pet, for example, passes away, everyone can relate to that. But no one can relate to you grieving something that you never had. Yeah. But there's that dream, that bubble that formed 15 years. Well, how long we've been together? 8 years at that point we've been together. That dream that had been started forming 8 years prior in those early dating conversations of do you want kids? How many? Do you have any names that you've got? And suddenly you're seeing all your mates around you taking those names that you'd said, and that's what you're losing, and that's something that you can't really hang on to, and you just feel a bit lost and yeah, just very. There aren't really any words for it, really, is there? Like ungrounded. No. I don't know if that even is a word, but that's
it's hard. What it is, it's hard to describe the feelings unless you've had them. And I use the word grief because my diagnosis was different, but it took me months to come to the realization that I needed to do more investigations. I didn't have the answers as to why I was having high DNA frag, and it was almost the unknown. So I need to do more. I don't know where to go. I was given, advice like the sort of, cut out saunas and you don't eat this, don't drink too much alcohol and stuff like that. But that wasn't like giving me a fix. That was like, these things might help, but we don't know. Then I went down, just to segue slightly, I ended up going down the rabbit hole with this. Eleanor pushed me. Like, even then, it was kind of, a lot of it was Eleanor going, we're not stopping here. We're going further. And I feel stupid now for being so naive with it. And now I look back and I'm so grateful that Eleanor did really kind of force me down these avenues or corridors, or whatever you want to call them. I ended up going to see Jonathan Ramsey and getting the full works and finding out I had a large varicocele, which I had embolized. But even then, I'm like doing all these things, and they're like, you've got a sweet spot of like 7 to 8 months to book your IVF in here, but like it might come back, and nothing was definitive. So I felt like I was working through this grief of knowing that I've got an issue and I don't know if I can solve it. Yeah. For you, you've got this diagnosis, which is permanent, and that's what I'm trying to understand is kind of, was it? I'm basically just trying to relate to you, but it seems like your grief will have been a lot heavier because, at least for me, I knew I could do more investigation and try and improve it, which I did. But for yourself, it was very final, right? So
I would say that it's not about kind of that comparison thing of who's got the least or the shittest sperm thing. It's not like a race to the bottom. Yeah. Because I've spoken to many hundreds of guys over the years now since I've been sharing my story, and guys that have just got kind of slightly adverse counts, whether it's like overall count, morphology, motility, DNA frag, but they've been impacted the same, if not more, or and it's what's more, like,
yeah, I know, yeah, it's not
mental health, and it's really not that, and just because I've literally got none, but I think probably what that did was, like, well, first of all, like, we were working towards, so I had varicocele as well. That was like identified quite early on.
Okay. And so do you have that embolized?
Yeah, and then that brings up questions of, like, actually, what's the point? But and I'm in a privileged position now that I've spoken to those same consultants and urologists since, and have had them on our podcast and stuff, and was able to ask those questions as to why for anyone else because at the time I was just like, yeah, whatever, you'll do whatever.
So sorry, just to go back, did you have the embolization before you got the diagnosis of the?
No, so the azoospermia was it was like a line in the sand. It was like no idea before.
Okay.
Suddenly you got this, and then the second test in March confirmed it, still none, and then it was like getting referred for blood tests, this, that, and the other. And one of the first urologists I got in front of did a hands-on physical examination straight away, said, you've got a varicocele. And I was like, again, another word. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, yeah.
So, even though I had no sperm, they still wanted to do an embolization. And now the reason they did that was because it was in my head. I was like, oh, right, great, that's going to solve it. A really quick, 1 day, minor outpatient operation, and that's job done. But actually now, and what I'm able to then help with experience is actually that was never going to be the case. It's not going to just kickstart where there's like non-obstructive azoospermia. So that means that was my particular type. So you get obstructive azoospermia, where there's a blockage preventing any sperm coming out. The classic one being a vasectomy, which is like a very purposeful blockage.
Right, okay.
You get other ones for other reasons. I don't know all of them. But mine, there was no blockages, but there was just no sperm. So what that was going to do was then, if I then went to have the nuclear option, a micro-TZ, having my nuts cut open, any sperm that were found in the balls, like from source, were going to be the best version of themselves they could be.
Did you have that? You did?
I did.
You did?
Yeah. I wasn't sure.
Thought you did, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, yeah. I've spoken to some people who've had like 2. lunatics, honestly.
So let me just go through that because I don't know the ins and outs of this. Do they have to cut your testicle open,
Yeah.
go inside,
Yeah.
and extract the sperm?
Yeah.
So it's basically like the freshest of the freshest possible.
Yeah. So what they do is, obviously open the sack, crack the nut open.
And the way you say it, they're cracking it open. I just feel like when you say that, I'm just thinking like Christmas when they've got like big nuts. And
I was under,
Wow.
so I have no idea, but I hope they were more delicate than that. But then 4 weeks of recovery would suggest not.
Was it 4 weeks?
Awful. And
wow. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty invasive.
I know other guys that are back to work after 5 days and stuff. It all depends on how much exploration they do. And the urologist did say it will take anywhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours.
Okay.
Obviously, I had no idea. And then when I came to, he was stood, and we were bouncing around all over the place. But I think it's a good convo, like, because that's the fertility journey, right?
It is. It's all over the place. The whole thing is.
Yeah, and like it's and all the waiting you have, like I was saying about results and stuff. That was one time I didn't have to wait because he was there, stood with the nurse to say sorry, none were found. But my wife was already crying before the result, and when I came to, I remember because she said that every minute that ticked past, and when it got to 2 hours, she just knew what it was. So what they do, they take away like tubules and material where sperm would be held, and then they give that to embryologists who then search. And they're like, yeah. But actually, I had an interesting conversation recently with a professor of andrology who was saying AI may help improve that because at the moment it's all on experience, human eye, looking at like kind of fatter tubules to think, oh yeah, that looks like it might have some. Whereas AI in the future may be able to help identify best option, best pick type thing. But where did we honestly?
Well, no, it's all good, mate.
Yeah.
Like, listen, these weaves are great. They all make sense. And I have got method to my madness as well. Don't worry. What I was going to bring us onto after this, so you were talking about the microteasy didn't get any.
Yeah.
And no sperm in there.
So it was all about the grief aspect, really, wasn't it? And that and like, did I get over it any quicker? I think the problem for me was that because there were no other men, and I say it's not just about me, it's kind of like then and all of the many men like previous, there were no men talking about this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that every man who's going through it now has found me or others, yourself, like there are still not enough voices. And when you can't find any other voices going through it, that was the most difficult thing for me because I thought I was the only bloke this had only ever happened to.
Yeah.
And I'd never even been given any stats like, azoospermia, 1% of men have it, or 1 in 14 men will have a fertility challenge. None of that might have helped a little bit just to make me feel less alone, but there was none of that. And then when I started looking for other blokes, there were none. So it's like, okay, shit, it is just me then. And it's like that stigma, that isolation of not having a tribe, of not having any other lads to speak to be like, this is crap. And then someone else to go, yeah, it is. And that's might have been all I needed at the time.
Yeah.
But that was the toughest part for me, I think, was, and you mentioned earlier that identity piece, kind of getting stripped back, which we came on to, but it's like that, everything I built up, all these external layers of thinking, right, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, going, well, actually, this thing attacks me at the core, and who am I at the core? And that's a really hard place to get to and to start stripping back those layers.
Well, that it's like peeling the onion, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the fertility struggles that you go through actually force you to peel that onion back.
Yeah.
You actually have no idea what's at the core of that onion until you're really tested.
Yeah.
And obviously you were. What I wanted to come on to next was the diagnosis. Obviously, then you tried the embolization. You've obviously gone through the microteasy, all that stuff. The next gradual step for you would be then to discuss sperm donor, right? So again, you've probably talked about this at nauseam, and I know you have because I've heard this conversation. But because this is a new podcast for us and a conversation for No Straight Lines, how did that conversation come about, and who instigated it?
Good question on who instigated it. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, and I actually don't know. I think it would have been the initial kind of seed, for want of a better phrase, would have been sown by the clinics.
Okay.
But actually, the conversation for us started. So I had the varicocele operation, embolization, in March of 19, and the microteasy in August. Now, I could have had it quite soon after, and the clinic were actually saying, like, what the embolization did what you can have the microteasy whenever you're up for it type thing. But those 5 months, I personally, that was my trough, was after that embolization, because I'd gone through that whole, so from diagnosis to embolization was about just under a year and a half. And I'd gone through that whole time just thinking, right, what's next? How can I get, like, the next expert is going to like solve this? Or then when I was presented with the option of having the embolization, I was like, okay, that's job done. I'll have that. I've been lucky that I'd never had any operations or any hospital visits before in my life. So you just think medical science is amazing. That's going to solve my problem. Had the embolization, and now the horrible thing about that is that you have to wait 3 months to know if it's done anything because of the sperm cycle. So then after that, I was like, we got the result, and I was at rock bottom, and my wife was driving me to the train station to go to work, and we had just pulled up in the car park when the phone call came through, and we were just like, we were both like just distraught, crying. And then, as life does, it just throws up these moments. This like woman walked past our car with a pushchair with a baby in, and it's like that thing that we wanted. It was so close, but for us, like, so far, we didn't know if it was going to happen. And it's like when you're at that complete trough, there's only one place to go, really. And that's when I think, like, the conversation did start around donor conception, alternate routes to parenthood. Yeah. Like we did talk about adoption and stuff. And I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know like what makes a father. I was having to answer those questions, and I didn't know who I was either. And that's, like we were saying about getting back to the onion. And this is the point where that identity did start to reform for me, because I'd come back to the core, and I felt lost. And I said something. I didn't ask a direct question of who am I to my wife, but I said something along the lines of, I don't know who I am anymore. And she responded by saying things, again, like, a few years ago, but it was stuff like, she said, I didn't marry you because I looked you up and down to think, oh, he's got a really high sperm count, a really strong sperm. She said, I love you because of your humor, your empathy, your strength, your resilience, your humility. She listed a few things, and I was like, of my character. And I was like, oh yeah, that's who I am. But also, all of those things aren't dependent on passing on my genetics. They are character traits. They are nurture. So that, for me, is when I started going, oh, okay, that's what makes a father, not this, that, or the other element of my physical, like, being, and my ability to pass on that genetically. So, and then I started kind of thinking, can I do it? Can I father a child that isn't genetically related to me? And I started looking at my own family situation. It's like, firstly, my grandfather on my dad's side wasn't my paternal grandfather, my biological grandfather. Sorry, not paternal, but on my paternal side.
Yeah.
He raised my dad and his brothers from when they were kids. He was married to my nan before I was even born. So I came into the world, and he was everything a grandfather should be. He was, like, honestly, just a wonderful human being. And it's like that love was there. And I always knew, I was raised in the knowledge that he wasn't my biological grandfather, because my dad and his brothers all called him Philly. So I called him Philly. But if I was ever chatting to you, like I have now, he's granddad.
Yeah, of
grandfather.
course, yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, shit. Of course, yeah, Philly. And then both mine and my wife's parents were divorced and remarried. Then there's a love for step parents. And it's like the grandfather thing, not like, that's quite a unique situation. But then how many people, for anyone else who's like kind of considering this, a lot of people have blended families now, step parents, for example, step brothers, sisters. But then also, from a marriage point of view, on my wife's side, we had nieces and nephews who I love dearly. And actually, one of my nieces I've always been, since the day she was born. She's like 14 now, typical like teenager. But I went to watch Oasis with her. Like, we've always
wicked.
had a very, very strong bond. And it's like, yeah, of course I can love. I can. That
it can work.
Goes beyond like DNA and genetics. So for me, then I started by doing that. I actually was like erring against having the microteasy. I was like, I don't have balls cut open, not after going through that with the embolization, because it was actually a really horrendous experience. It wasn't as straightforward as they made out.
Yeah.
And in the end, my wife, who I've said this to many times, she's wiser than she gives herself credit for. She then said, "I'll support you in whatever you want to do, but if you don't do it, will that question mark always be there? What's less of a thing for you?" She said, "Will it for the rest of your life? Will that bug you more not having had it and not knowing, or having done it and then potentially having the pain and the side effects? Because one of the side effects being that it can decimate your testosterone production. And mine was the lower end normal anyway, because of my the problems with my reproductive system. And yeah, it did happen. I'm on TRT now, but not for the hashtag gains, because my body just doesn't make it anymore. Okay. But so yeah, I did it, and that was complete closure, and it enabled me to just actually I say that, but I did. Not only did I need 4 weeks physical recovery, I thought I was at a place of acceptance of right, I'll do this, and if it doesn't work, we'll just crack on with donor conception. Yeah. It kind of brought me down just a little bit from that acceptance piece, and I had to rework on that, because there is such a finality to it. It's like that door is shut now and it will never be open. Because like I said before, even though it was like this diagnosis of zero sperm, I was always having this bit of hope that maybe that person will help.
Clinging on.
Yeah. So suddenly when that door is slammed shut, like the transfer window, it's like slammed shut. It's never just gently closed, is it? But it was like, right, that's it. It took a bit of time actually to really reflect, and I think that's the right thing to do, because it's a complex route to parenthood, and it will not heal my infertility. It's not a sticking plaster. It's a lifelong decision, a life-changing decision. Not just for me, but for any, at that point, unconceived children, let alone young children or whatever. You have to take a third-party view. I have to consider what an unborn child may think about this down the line if we were successful. It's really, you have to do the work, and I think it's the right thing to do.
And you've done that, right?
Yeah.
So you now have how many children?
Twins, yeah.
You have twins?
Yeah, boy and a girl. So they've just turned 5. And yeah, carnage, but the best type of carnage. And and I genuinely mean this. I'm not saying it because it's a nice soundbite or I want them to hear it in the future, but I genuinely wouldn't change anything of what I went through, because I truly believe that I was destined to be their father. And
beautiful.
Even if someone came along and was like, I could reverse all of that, I just wouldn't, because not only about them, but it's also, like I said, Shaun 2.0, I'm a better version of myself, better husband, and having the resilience that whole journey gave me has stood me well for life, because life continues to be hard and throw up challenges. Yeah. But I learned then some very hard lessons that will serve me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it because it leads me on to the next question, which is, do you feel any less of a father because you're not their genes?
No. I honestly, I don't know how it's possible to love a child or children any more than what I do. It's just, and sometimes when I speak to guys who are really struggling to get their head around donor conception, I just wish I could bottle up how I feel and just give them the
emotion, yeah,
and just be like that would solve any doubts they've got, because honestly, it's that connection. Okay, let's stick on that for a minute. The kind of genetics resemblance and all that. My wife never gets anyone say that the kids look like her.
Really?
No, she's never had it. Never. She hopes. She gets annoyed, but the people say all the time, even people who know our story, about how much my boy looks like me.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's like I should have asked, sorry, at the beginning, whether you could swear.
No, you could swear.
But yeah, so and then, but parenting isn't. It's not about that thing of essentially pump squirt. It's parenting is in the everyday. It's in the presence. It's in the love. It's being there in the hard times, in the good times, and that is what forms those bonds. My kids know the story. I said kids. My son sadly is very autistic, and whether he'll truly ever know is, I don't know. I hope so. But again, for someone who can't talk, he can show me how much he loves me. He shows the world how much he loves me. Whereas my daughter, she knows the story, and she doesn't know what it means at 5 years old, but she like daddy doesn't have any seeds and all this, and like,
Bless her.
like I said, I was raised in the knowledge that my grandfather wasn't biologically linked to me.
Yeah.
Didn't change a thing. So,
No.
yeah, sorry, long answer to it.
No, this is what I'm happy to sit and listen. You're the guest, and I want to get as much juice out of you as possible. And I also, you know, with all due respect, I want you to talk openly about this, because I know you do this anyway on your social media. But I think it's important for other men who are out there listening to this, who are potentially in a similar situation that you have been, and maybe sat here now watching this going, I've now got a conversation or a decision to make on whether we do donor sperm and whether I do want to go down that route. And to hear it from the horse's mouth is, I mean, there's no better way to kind of understand the way you literally answered 3 of my questions in one. The way you described it about being, if I could bottle that emotion, that feeling, and give it to them, there'd be no doubt.
Yeah,
I think that's the strongest thing you could have said for that.
yeah. And it's not for everyone. And I've had a few female partners kind of like elbow their men towards me, thinking that I'm going to then convince them to do it. But that's not what I do, because it's not for everyone. And
Yeah.
you have to, what I do is offer perspectives and lived experience, but also ask open questions about things they might not have considered, and try and give them those light bulb moments. And not, often it is a bit of a wood for the trees situation. Like my own family makeup and background, I hadn't even considered that for like 2 years probably, until it was when I did. And because you're in that grief, shock, trauma, all of that's circling around, let alone stigma, shame, isolation. So there's a lot going on. So be kind to yourself, but that you know, that's what I do, is just try and show that there are other paths, and they're as beautiful as any that you can take. Well,
let's go on to that. That leads us into the next bit, which I want to talk about, which is what you're doing now and what you're trying to achieve with, I'm saying this right, Nexus?
Yeah.
Right? All this stuff. Let's go into this, because you rightly said at the start, you've turned your trauma, your situation, your experience into something, now trying to help people and turn it into something positive.
Yeah.
Right? And you've kind of used it as a catalyst to push you in that direction. And you can go one of both ways. One way or the other. You've gone down that route to try and help. So I want to touch on briefly, like, what are you doing now? How are you helping other men? What's your mission? Like, what is your mission statement? You know, I don't need it like word for word, but what are you trying to achieve with everything that you're doing now?
Yeah, so it all started just before my twins were born, actually, January 21. But I have to rewind a little bit back to May 20. We hadn't even had a successful cycle just yet. We were still going through all the fertility stuff. So our first round got cancelled because my wife got really poorly with ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Then we were just about to go for the second one, had all the drugs at home, then lockdown happened. And then when it reopened in May 20, we were given the green light and could go again. We had all the stuff in the fridge. But we were contacted by our fertility clinic. They said, look, BBC want to interview people who have been impacted by COVID, like lockdown, on fertility treatment. Are you two up for it? And we were like, yeah, cool. So they were due to come around and film in the back garden. It was like that May lockdown, the fun one, where it was like really sunny.
Everyone was outside the garden. Yeah.
Not the shit ones in like the winter.
Yeah.
But that morning, and bearing in mind at this point, I hadn't spoken to a single person, not even my closest friends, just my wife. I was barely speaking to my wife. And I said to her, I listened to a podcast about someone else who went for a life-changing injury and got his broken back and went on to try and help others. And it was like a light bulb. And I said, when the BBC guys come over, I'm going to tell them my story. And she was just like, yeah, right, good one. And I did, and it was completely incoherent. It was like, bleh, like all this emotion coming out. And I spent that night phoning all of my closest friends, telling them, my family. And honestly, this is what I say to people, like, if you think your friends aren't going to understand because they haven't been through it, they might not truly understand, but you are robbing them of the opportunity to be like my mates were when I told them, just like top drawer. None of them had any fertility issues, but the way in which they handled and received that information was just amazing. I was like, I should have done this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, you follow the pattern and the time. So anyway, I had to do that because I was petrified that the BBC thing was going to go out and they would find out that way. As it happens, none of that made it into the piece because that's what it wasn't about. It was about fertility lockdown.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's May 20. Then, like, sorry, it's a bit of long context, but then that roughly that day, that next day, or whatever, I said to my wife, right, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to start sharing my story openly, face, name, everything, because that's what people need. They need to know they're not alone, and I'm not going to be anonymous. It's going to be everything. And she was like, yeah, all right, cool. Again, and it took me 8 months to do that.
Wow.
Because I was petrified of being trolled, of like throwing myself out there to the world, and just again, there was still no one doing it. And I just kept coming back to it, thinking, I've got something to give here. And also, I was like, I needed to see not just that other blokes were going through it, but other blokes who walked and talked like me. I've got, tats and that, and just to show that it can be anyone. And so 8 months later, I pressed send on my first 2 posts on my Instagram account, Knackered Knackers, and it went mad. I literally pressed post on the first 2, put my phone into flight mode, and went for a walk for an hour. And I re-listened to that podcast because I needed like validation of what I've just done.
Yeah.
And when I came back, it was like whirlwind. And like if there's like a 1-word summary of what everyone was saying, was finally, as in finally, there's a man talking about this.
Yeah.
And it just sparked something in me, this like passion. And my mum, bless her, and I've said this to her as well, but she hasn't got like a business background. But I didn't like my job at the time. I hadn't done for years, but I was just enduring it. And then when she saw the reaction of people on the comments and that, she was like, maybe this could be your job. I was like, yeah, right, mum. Like, yeah. And lo and behold, 5 years later,
She nailed it.
yeah. So yeah, then I had the chance meeting with Kieran once at a fertility show, which at the time of recording is tomorrow, this weekend. Cut that out if you want.
Yeah, that's all right. No, big up Kieran as well.
Yeah.
Kieran.
So we had a chance meeting at the fertility show a couple of years ago. We left at the same time, did that typical, he was starting to become active in the space, typical bloke thing, like, what?
Yeah. That's about it.
Recognised each other, we stayed in touch, like messaging on Insta and that, and then started our podcast. And then again, it's the constant, and this is what I think you get from something where you're really passionate about, that blessing and a curse, but the constant itching feeling there's more to be done.
Yes.
And we were like, podcast is great. We've got listeners literally all over the world. You can see it on our distribution platform where it on a map shows you where people are. The only place we haven't got coverage is Greenland. And
that's amazing.
That's it. But it doesn't matter about numbers. I am happy that we have one listener in Guatemala. I am as proud as him as anyone else, because that's one person on the other side of the world.
Absolutely.
That otherwise would have felt isolated. And then, since then, again, that itching feeling, like, okay, we've got the podcast, we've got our Instagrams, and I had like a WhatsApp group with guys that are just, anyone I'd met or talked to, I say, look, I've got this WhatsApp group, join this. And it got to 100 guys, and we were like, this is great, let's do something more about this. So then we formed Nexus Fertility a year ago. And when's this pod going out?
This will be like 4 weeks today.
Okay, well, a little... a special reveal for you, but in 4 weeks' time it will be common knowledge. But we're rebranding to the Male Fertility Hub.
Oh, amazing! Like that.
A bit more does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
So
on the nose, so people know what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Nexus was clever. It was based on the Latin word nexus, which means a central place of convergence.
Okay.
Changed the U for a Y, so it's an X and a Y for men. But when you have to explain it, it's kind of like the moment's lost. Yeah. We were considering changing it, and back in March I was doing a talk up in Manchester, and Kieran came. He was sat like with me in the audience, and when the host introduced me onto the stage, they said, our next speaker is Shaun Greenaway from NEXYS Fertility. And as I stood up, I turned to Kieran and went, yeah, we're changing the name.
Yeah, nail the coffin, you're going to do that, yeah.
But yeah, what it's all about, it's very similar to what you're doing at Illuma, and there's, like you said to me before, a rising tide lifts all ships. And
100%.
Like, it's just about support, peer support, because I've seen it. I've seen it with the guys in the WhatsApp, with people we meet in person or whatever. You cannot beat being in a room. It's like I said earlier, with someone who just goes, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to explain anything. You don't have to bookend it. You don't have to almost validate their feelings, because they don't know how to help you, because everyone knows. And it's just, finding your tribe is a powerful thing. Community.
It's a community, and also that kind of being around more than one person in a room who understands. It's that, and we've been speaking to loads of people recently, kind of doing what we call it discovery calls, or trying to understand how we make Illuma better for people who have been through it, or have gone through it, or in it now. Because our journey is one thing, but everyone experiences a different journey. And one of the things that we found is people feel so calm speaking to a stranger about intimate things when they've just met them. We jump on calls with people, men and women, and we've just spoke to them on TikTok or Instagram or email, and they're getting a call and they tell us things that they haven't even told their best friend.
Yeah.
Because we just get it.
Yeah.
So what you're doing with Nexus, you've got these, the Male Fertility Hub, where you've got men going into a room and everyone in that room knows that they all understand how it feels to feel like them.
Yeah.
They don't have to explain anything. They don't have to give them like a context sheet. Like everyone just knows.
Yeah.
And it's that like, it's just feeling safe, isn't it? You feel so, it just calms you.
It's like that psychological safety, really.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, psychological safety. That's it.
We do in-person meets, and I did one in Bristol last autumn, and one guy turned up about, I think, half an hour, 45 minutes later. When he turned up, we'd already been talking about some really like deep stuff. But he walked in the room and we were talking about speeding fines and bemoaning them and slagging off the police and that. And he walked in and he's kind of thought, am I in the right place? Then he saw me and I was like, all right, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, sorry mate, yeah, come in, you are in the right place. But then it's like this thing, you go into this stuff that's like you said, more intimate stuff than they've ever even told, not just friends, but like close immediate family, to suddenly then just talk about football or whatever else, rugby, and then just veer it. But that is because it's hard to stay in those moments. But and then all it'll be, it's weird, like, and then literally someone else will go, so yeah, going for a transfer on Friday, and then it will just take you right back into it. And yeah, it's a remarkable thing, and I'm just so proud to be able to give people that space, because it's like my North Star is, what do I wish I had? And I never pretend to know all the answers, nor does anyone else in that community, but by being all together and sharing perspectives, and that's what it's perspectives, just have you thought about this, or like testing and stuff like that now that the guys are talking about, never even heard of.
No.
But now they're all talking about like microbiome testing and stuff, and it's bringing up like infections, and it would have had real detrimental impact on their chances of conceiving or then maintaining, and and I'm aware of your background, like, with losses and stuff, and I'm really sorry about that, and to hear is but to know that these things are out there and not necessarily told to you, but the power of community, just by saying, have you thought about this?
Yes.
If it's just going to help one person not experience something that could be so painful or shortcut something,
so worth
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I don't think there's a better way to end it there, but what I would like to say firstly for me is thank you so much for coming down and being so open, mate. It's really nice to actually meet you in person. Yeah. You're bigger than I thought you were going to be.
And you.
And what I think you're doing with the Male Fertility Hub, previously Nexus, is amazing. I think the lads need it, and I'm going to keep banging that drum for the male fertility voice, because we don't talk about it enough. I don't think men talk about anything as much as we should. And these things are hard to talk about. Showing vulnerability and letting your guard down is something that we still need to be better at. But what you're doing with you and what you and Kieran are doing is incredible. So before we do wrap up, do you want to tell everyone where they can find your stuff, what your social media is, or how they can find the Male Fertility Hub? Like what's next, what's coming up?
Yeah, so the Male Fertility Hub. .com will be live by the time this has gone out. But any old legacy Nexus stuff, nexusfertility.com, that will re-divert there anyway. And I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be Knackered Knackers on Instagram.
It's the best one of all the fertility people I follow. It's by far. As soon as I was speaking to a lady today at the Black and Brown show, actually the Black and Brown fertility show, and I said, I've got a podcast with Shaun. Do you know Shaun? And I said Knack, and as soon as I said Knack, she was like, Knackered Knackers. Yeah, I know Shaun.
It's grown legs.
Great. Yeah.
My Instagram handle's done what my balls could never do. It's just like spawned and reproduced. And yeah, it's grown a life of its own. And we had a chat with someone who's like a branding person. They were just kind of what led to the Male Fertility Hub, and they were like, yeah, I mean, your other bits you should really bring it. I said, I'm never ever getting rid of Knackered Knackers. Like, that will be always mine, always remain. It's too good.
It's way too good. Yeah, don't listen to them. I
tried to sorry, I know we have it, but when I was trying to come up with a handle, part of the sticking point with that 8 months was I couldn't find anything poignant enough. I was like trying to think of all these really resonant names, like, I don't know, like, I can't even remember now, but like Journey to Fatherhood.
Yeah, long-winded.
Nothing felt right. Not even, but like, it's just was trying to find really like heartfelt stuff, and I was just like, I came up with Knackered Knackers. I was like, that's it.
Just get to the point.
Yeah.
No, it's great. Well, mate, thanks again for coming down. Really appreciate your time, and I've got to come to one of these male fertility hub things at some point soon, whatever the next one is. When is the next one actually?
I haven't got any in the planned at the moment, but I was thinking about something in the summer in London. So
perfect.
you know,
Well, I'll be around, so I'll be there.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, mate. Thanks, everyone.
Pleasure.